Hi, everybody. This is day 1050 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And let's check to see if everything is working, if everyone can hear me okay. I think it's been a huge day because behind the scenes we have made an official criminal complaint amongst other complaints, providing evidence, um, so much evidence. And so we'll see if our institutions will do something. And of course, you can see what's going on right now with this preparation into the election. What they're doing to President Trump is absolutely outrageous. But it really, um, it really proves what we're saying to be possible and true. That our law enforcement agencies, such as the CID and the FBI, well, I've said it on live that the CID is responsible for the disappearance of Richard Halliday. Um, and let me make sure everything is working. I okay. Looks it looks good. Okay, I'll turn that down. And yeah. So, what is going on politically right now in Texas and also um, nationwide is, I guess, an example, a huge example, a huge proof that what has happened in Richard's case is possible. It's not unbelievable. It's absolutely true. And what do I mean by that? That there was collusion, that there was conspiracy. I don't have to put on a tinfoil hat because you can see the conspiracy right there against President Trump. You can see the double standard in our Department of Justice. You can see the politics everywhere. And I've been crying politics since the beginning of this because of the 2020 COVID crimes against humanity that was led by the Department of Defense, our 44 four-star generals and admirals that, made did whatever they could to put forth this political maneuver. And it was a political maneuver. We know now it was a political maneuver. I know it's hard for a lot of people to believe because people still believe um, that there is some kind of virus out there or whatever, and you have to protect yourself from it. I don't believe that. And I said that in 2020. And I did get some pushback because, why are you saying that, Pat? You're going to burn bridges. Well, because it's so destructive. It's so destructive. It was so destructive to our service members, and nobody was willing to stand up for our service members in vast amounts. I know that Danny over by Terminal CWO, he has worked endlessly protecting or advocating for so many of our service members that lost everything, their career, um, their, other than honorable discharge or, you know, uh, just were bullied, were retaliated against just because they did not want to get a Cobra strike, right? They didn't want to get a Cobra strike. They had religious beliefs, or they just decided that they would take the chance without it because there was a 99.9% recovery rate. Um, and yeah, and I heard that a lot. And when we were there at Fort Bliss, I'm going to tell you the hypocrisy. There's so much hypocrisy. When we got there to Fort Bliss and we were given this is in 2020, this is in, um, I think it was, I have to look at the timeline. Uh, it was the first week in September of 2020. We were given a tour. We were put on a bus and given a tour of Richard's Barracks and more. And we did a public service announcement. And you see that we were not wearing masks. We weren't, there was this huge hypocrisy um, because the leadership knew that it was a political maneuver. Okay. And they were starting to get retaliated against also, these top leaders. And so, like a month or two later after that, it would have not been possible to make that public service announcement the way we did, how we did it right there on Fort Bliss. It just wouldn't have been possible because the following meetings were just absolutely insanity. And and it really, very much so, hurt the search for Richard because it was politics. It divided the people, it divided the service members. So, it really hurt Army readiness, military readiness. And I saw it. They were scared, they were shaking, they were upset, they were, it was such a terrible thing for a 99.9% survival rate, unless you were put on some machine or whatever. But yeah, it was a very political time, and it's political now, but it was very, very much so that in 2020. And then offices were closed down. People were not doing their jobs. Um, they were unavailable. And it was just so frustrating to try to find Richard. And, people would be out and offices closed, and people not willing to get near you because they were afraid, right? They were very afraid of some kind of invisible dead um, bug or germ or something. The germ theory is really trash, and I say that with a lot of conviction because we did a lot of research, and that's, when you do a lot of research, that's what screams out. And it really hindered finding Richard, and it really did a lot of damage to our service members. And I'm not willing to add to the damage to our service members, to our military, um, more than what is being done now with the lack of standard operating procedures at the time. You know, um, they claimed that they cared about the health of our service members, yet they did everything possible to harm the health of our service members. Our service members, for the most part, the ones that live in the barracks, the ones that volunteer, are very young, 17 to 25 years old. And that made their chance of survival even greater. And yet they were being bullied. They were being bullied. Here they had volunteered to defend a free country, right? A country that gave them rights to be free and make decisions um, about their person. and they joined and were bullied and retaliated against. So I wasn't willing, Rob and I were not willing to participate with that. We tried as hard as we could to push back on that whole narrative. And I think, um, it took a long time, but I think that we were vindicated in that because, just look at the health of people. I think you can be vindicated on that, and also vindicated on Richard's case that there was a politics that hindered the search for Richard. It seems that if you participate with Vanity Fair, that you get protection. And what do I mean by Vanity Fair? I mean all kinds of um, disgusting, disgusting actions. And I think there's no other good example than Leilani Hart's notarized confession and complaint to the CID that ended up being an FBI file because it's so serious. And Vanity Fair would be the sexual assault of a 7-year-old in your master bedroom by multiple members of your household. Vanity Fair would be being engaged in an incestual relationship with your brother while you're active duty. So, well, at any time. But as an adult and also serving in the military, that makes it really bad. Then also, Vanity Fair would be participating in having child pornography. And I think that that is the best example that I can give you of that, of the Vanity Fair. And I call Veronica Escobar Vanity Fair because she participates in it. Absolutely. And the things that are very, very important because she has so much power. She has absolutely so much power. And I even posted up the power that she has with the committees that she's on. And yet, she's too busy with Vanity Fair to do the right thing. And I would give that also to many of the military leaders. They're absolutely engaged in the Vanity Fair up to no good rather than to take care of their service members, their soldiers, and to look for a missing soldier. And so I wanted to bring that up because I've been doing some research. What did they need to do? What would be the normal procedure, the standard operating procedure when a soldier goes missing? And here I have it. And I divided them up to the public affairs. Let me see if I can share my screen with you because I think that would be good. Let's see. There you go. There you go. You can see it. Make sure that, yeah. Okay, so here it is. It says missing soldier case timeline of what should have happened in Richard Halliday's case. And with the public affairs officer, day one, notified of the missing soldier, should have immediately initiated comprehensive information gathering and coordinating with all relevant parties, including the soldier's family, unit leadership, and law enforcement agencies. Unfortunately, initial response was delayed due to miscommunication. Day two, primary point of contact for media inquiries should have provided timely updates and maintained open communication channels with the media. However, there was a lack of consistent messaging leading to confusion and misinformation. And day 3 holds press conference, provides updates and supports the soldier's family. Press conference was held, but information provided was limited, leading to dissatisfaction among the soldier's family and the public. Well, I can tell you right now that this press conference um, happened way after the third day. Okay? Way after the third day. So, yeah, this is a. Yeah, there were gaps in communication and coordination, causing frustration and delays in the investigation. Hmm. Yeah, it's always just excuses. Um, but I think this is something really good to look at, and it's frustrating me right now to read it again. But what should have happened in Richard's case didn't happen. And it's not just Richard's case. There's something systemic going on in um, our institutions, and it's causing so many people to get hurt because standard operating procedures and protocols are um, not being done properly. And we were never notified that Richard was missing, and I think that's a really big deal. So it's a big deal, and I believe, yesterday I said this, I believe the question is, who called off the search for Richard? Because it is so botched that somebody, it could have been CID, it could have been the 32nd um, uh, ADCOM commander, it could have been all of them that called off the search for Richard Halliday very early on. And I believe it was day 3 or 4, when the normal time is, the first couple days, you might not call the family, but third or fourth day, you have to call the family. Those are the days for that. And there's no excuses after that. So who called off the search so that that wouldn't have to happen? Okay. That that's what needs to be answered, because there's nothing. I would love someone to help us, to show us any information, any media, any information that was carried out before the end of August. Okay? Because it wasn't until Rob called Captain Yoshida, and Captain Yoshida informed us that Richard was missing, that anything was done. And then it's very interesting everything that happened after that time. So we also have uh, service members, their confessions, their testimonies that they never knew there was a missing soldier, and when they did find out, it was months later, when they participated with a search that was held during physical PT time, right? Physical training time. And, they weren't really given too many instructions. And we know that, I believe it was either the Hondo Pass or another remains that they just walked over because they weren't really looking for remains. Even though that, which is very interesting, because if they believed Richard was AWOL, why were they looking for remains? Because that's what they were looking for, right? They were looking for remains. Um, it's interesting. It's interesting. I guess they were following whatever procedures um, or possibilities that that we had mentioned, one being an accident or AWOL, or and we searched all of those possibilities diligently and with patience. And I will tell you right now, Richard is confirmed murdered, and the CID is responsible for his disappearance. And what do I mean by that? Well, we just put in a official criminal complaint for the forced disappearance, the conspiracy, and the murder of Richard Halliday. And so we do believe there is a few major suspects in the murder of Richard. But we do believe that the CID is responsible for the disappearance of Richard because Richard was a whistleblower and they had the duty to safeguard him as a whistleblower. And his CID special agent that was appointed to him as a victim's advocate, we believe that that was Tavita Nusa, that had access to Richard's file, that gave that out, that betrayed Richard, that exposed Richard and put him in grave danger. And I'm just thinking about what happened to Richard, that he was tortured and murdered and dismembered. He was murdered with sharp objects, so says the autopsy lead that we received, that we haven't gotten answers. We're waiting still from Quantico the summary, and for them to go to El Paso to walk the crime scene, right? The crime scene, the barracks room. And we also have huge concerns, grave concerns, for the breach of security there on Fort Bliss and in the barracks. Again, because remember, we had the whole case of Asia Graham that showed that there was a lot of problems in the barracks. And now we have this young soldier with a live-in 14-year-old that he was prostituting. So the culture there is the prostitution. The culture there is a pedophilia. The culture there, and I'm not saying everyone is engaged in it, but I will tell you this. Rob spent 30 years in the military, and he said he never belonged to a unit that a soldier went AWOL, and he never belonged to a unit that a soldier committed suicide in 30 years. And he belonged to lots of units. So, especially as a physician assistant, right? So I think that tells you a lot about what is going on in our culture. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Anicia. So we are definitely looking at the notary public. Yeah, the notary public. So that went in today to a response to the communication that we had, because we have a right to look at documents. We have a right to not get harassed, to not get questioned. In Texas, notary publics, they are to keep a logbook. Okay, they're supposed to keep a logbook, and it's very, very important. So, in this case, it's very interesting what's going to come out of that. But so we have an inquiry into that. We have an inquiry into the post itself and its security. And people need to know this if you are a mom's, and I'm speaking out to mothers of missing, murdered, and maligned soldiers, you need to not have to wait 1,050 days to do what we're doing. You should do it right away. Make sure that you communicate with whoever is in charge of security of the military installation your loved one is assigned to or at when they go missing or murdered or maligned. And also look at the details, um, and look at the evidence. And in our case, it has to do with there's a connection with a notary public. Matter of fact, two connections with two different notary publics. So this is, why we're so transparent, because we don't want other families to have to go through what we are going through, and it's a huge learning curve, right? It is, for a normal family, they don't have to contact all of these institutions and agencies for help uh, day to day. And so when this comes up and you have to do it day to day, it is a little bit overwhelming, and the unknown. The unknown. So, because you might be submitting complaints and inquiries expecting answers. And when you don't get an answer back, you might get frustrated and not want to put in another complaint. But you have to keep going and keep going and keep going and lay the foundation. And then, when you don't get the answer, you can you can say, wait a minute, why didn't you help us? Why didn't you give us this information? It's kind of like Michael Ruggiero coming on the other day. I think it was on Mom's site, and was like wanting some kind of retraction about something. And I was like, what, you're coming on now? 1,048 days or whatever, when we called you there, I believe it was October of 2020, asking to have a discussion with you so that you can set things right. You could tell us what's going on. And we have him on record. We have him on record, y'all, saying that he was unwilling to speak with us. And I think that's outrageous. So I don't know what part that Michael Ruggiero played in all of this. I think it's curious that um, he refused to speak with us at the beginning. That's suspicious. Okay, because he was Richard's first sergeant, and his wife um, seems to lend her identity out. Seems to lend her identity out, and we're trying to get to the bottom of that, because we presented that in the stage task force Find Richard Halliday. We presented that information, and what is the FBI doing for their money? What is the CID doing for their money? We're still waiting. We are still waiting for them to give us an answer about Hemasocho or Hemasaboteur, who that is, and why are they connected. So, if anyone has any questions, that is major topics going out today. Is for the base, and we want to know the security. We have some other questions in there too that are very, very important. Then I saw that there was a call to release pictures of evidence of the tampered images going to Interpol. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about releasing those images, but you have to remember that there's so many of them that are high numbers between the image and Dallas Hart. And then, I'm just trying to get some advice on that. And then for Richard, the numbers are so low. are so low. What is that? So it kind of proves that there was tampering with a video. That's what that proves. And uh, so we're trying to we're trying to decide if we are going to release that evidence, those that forensic study that was given back to us. And tonight, I went to this beautiful concert at our church. It was amazing, and it gives you a lot of hope that our young people, the young people out there, have places to go. And so, this place, St. Andrews, that's in Northern California, believe it's a high school and a college. I think it's from what I heard today, the first Anglican college that has been opened in over 100 years, maybe 150 years. So, which is a huge accomplishment, and I wish them all well there. I really do. Um, and so, if you are in the market for a young person, young adult, to have a school, you might want to look into that. But the concert was was evensong, and it was really beautiful. They sang beautifully, so that gave me a different perspective again, because he was saying, um, in this, that, well, we know that music is like another language, like a foreign language. So, it's really recommends you learning music. I really recommend you learning music. I made the kids learn music so that we could decipher things easier. And the more languages, the more cultures that you know about, the more that you can decipher and discern better day to day. And maybe that has helped us with Find Richard Halliday, because I put up a poem. I put up a poem because we have, with the help of Team Find Richard Halliday, um, absolutely we were being mocked by this fake Facebook identity that this person is using. And they're using the wrong identity, though. They're using Festivia or something like that. And Richard Halliday translates into Ricardo Diaz Santo. So let me share that. And that would be Holy Day. A Richard Holy Day. So I have this poem and I'm going to read it to you. Richard Halliday, Ricardo Diaz Santo, names intertwined, a symbol of valor, holy day of justice, his name shall be, inspiring others to stand and be free. Richard Halliday, Ricardo Diaz Santo, two names, one purpose, for justice to sow, a whistleblower strength, fearless and bold, protecting children, their stories unfold. Guidon bearer, leading with pride, inspiring his unit, standing side by side, distinguished honor graduate, shining bright, a beacon of hope, a guiding light. Across the borders, his name echoes strong. I'm going to change that. Echoes strong, English and Spanish, united in song, a missing soldier, but never forgotten. His legacy lives on, a hero begotten. Richard Halliday, Ricardo Deo Santo, in hearts and minds their spirits entwined, champion of truth and defender of right, their courage shines through, a beacon of light. And so I really hope that the unit understands that it was providence that Richard was a guidon bearer. Okay, that's providence. And so maybe that they can find their courage to fight against the weaponization of our law enforcement, the infiltration. I really believe it's been infiltrated and that it's been weaponized against the very people that it's meant to protect and serve. And they have forgotten that. And that's why we can't get answers. Do I believe that Richard's remains were found in Mexico? Yes. And I want to thank Ricardo Diaz Festivios or whatever for, giving that topic, that material to create a poem because he got it wrong and he's got everything wrong in what he was saying. Absolutely. Um, to go back to the DUI, Richard never pleaded guilty, never pleaded guilty. And, um, that whole case was on the path of being dismissed, and it was dismissed. Um, and we talked to the people involved in that, and it was always on the path of being dismissed because it was a setup, y'all. It was a setup. And I really believe that, a young lady that was involved in all of this uh, uh, helped set this up so that Richard um, could get retaliated against. And I believe that that started in January of 2020 because that parking lot is right in front of the FBI headquarters, okay? And it is a private parking lot. So why were the police coming on a private parking lot? And Richard never pleaded guilty. Never, never was, you know. So um, to say that he is guilty of something that he's not, I think is a crime in itself. Um, that Ricardo guy, he got it all wrong. And, it's all been coming out. And I think that they're just protecting themselves and the crime that they have committed when it comes to what Richard knew about um, the others there. Because it's very clear that he was, and no one doubts it, that he was reporting criminal activity inside the unit. Okay? Inside the unit. How high does that go up? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Because we wrote those 3 documents today behind the scenes, and we are reaching out to uh, many other people, um, we're starting to get some pushback. And that's okay because we have to push back with them. They're the ones that are destroying our young people. They're the ones that are destroying our service members. They're the ones, and they get upset when we push back uh, this narrative and these activities against our service members and our young people. And so I just want to say that we just have to fearlessly fight this battle of ideology for the sake of our service members, for the sake of Richard. And when we really start getting our service members to understand that, then we'll absolutely find Richard. Absolutely. So, reaching out to veterans groups right now, reaching out to law enforcement, and so everyone knows that when I say uh, the law enforcement has been weaponized against, I'm talking about um, not every person that's in law enforcement, but I'm talking about the leadership and how they conduct their standard operating procedures and how they conduct their investigations. So, um, okay, everyone, thank you so much. I know I was maybe a little bit confusing, but it's Friday night, and I just want everyone to know that we're very, very appreciative to make it through another, just about another week. And tomorrow I'll be on, God willing, and give you some more updates. Thank you so much. God